right, everybody. There's a few things I wanted to talk about so far. Um, and some of these things are indeed sad, unfortunately. And some of these things, but you know something, despite how sad some of these things are, these people did, they did give their all on bringing forth truth. We've lost of a lot of people throughout the years. Who dedicated their life to trying to help a lot of people and actually get, spread awareness about a lot of the corruption that's going on. We've lost a lot of good people over time. Two in general, I'm going to basically mention specifically, we've lost Sick Hales a while back. And he was a fellow Target individual speaking out a lot against all this corruption that was going on. And more recently, we've lost a truther by the name of Jeff Censored. Most of you all already know about it. Most of you all who have already checked out his channel already probably have been updated about the situation. He was starting to speak out about the things that were happening as far as like the gaslighting, the gang stalking. I've watched this channel for a while now, and there were certain parts in his videos where he would bring up these key points, how they would basically, like the opposition would use methods like these in order to silence the masses. And it was either, just doing it directly to them or just immediately just threatening with it. But he was one of the few that they could not silence, and as a result, they took him out. Now, the significance of this, honestly, it's very difficult to really tell, but this is what I've been saying for the longest. If you are, and this is also why I made the playlist as an example, so people can be able to recognize the patternizations of if they're being targeted by this satanic program. This way, it allows people to be able to pick up on the the hints of what is going on, as well as being able to be aware. If you find yourself in a position of being targeted by this program, you do not ever want to eat out, because they will most likely try to poison you that way. That's how they got me a while back. But you see, people who don't know about this wouldn't know actually what to avoid or what to do in order to protect both themselves and their families. And as a result, due to that level of, and it's not the person's fault, but it is a level of ignorance, because they don't know. They don't even know anything about this. We were no different at first, because we also had no idea about this program's existence. Now, the significance of how or what happened to Jeff Censored, I don't know the full details about his situation. I don't know. But considering the content he was making and considering the topics that were talked about, I wouldn't look at that any other way than in an obvious murder. That's just my common belief. Despite the fact that I do not know the significant situations of his case. But anyway, it's just been a common trend. I mean, if you've even seen some parts of the media, I honestly don't recommend anybody watching it. But what was that guy's name? That was Denzel Washington. He said it best. If you don't watch the media, you're uninformed. But if you do watch it, then you're misinformed. Meaning they're not telling, if you watch it, or you're just getting misinformation, or they're not telling you the whole truth. And they're using, they're either going to use tactics of doublespeak, or they're basically just going to flat out lie to you. I mean, ODD TV shared a video, and it wasn't even just him. It was the guy who actually did the video and showed, all of these different clips of different news outlets side by side being played, all having the same scripted language, the same scripted intro, and the same scripted way of talking. And when people saw this, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. It was like the same teleprompter messages are being displayed to the exact same outlets of media. And then they pull the stunt to where they want everything shut down to keep everybody in their homes. And thanks to some good Samaritans out there who basically, went out there to get the actual footage, what ended up happening is they ended up catching stunts that the media was perpetuating to basically played off as reality. And then we see another clip of people basically making a connection with the movie known as Contagion. And then we figure out that the news anchor man, the same dude who was, working, basically playing as an actor in that movie as a news anchorman, actually is working for CNN in the same position, talking about the current viral effects that are going out now. Now, I did get a strike, so they are cracking down on a lot of this stuff. A big thank you to Wayne Morris for sharing that vid from earlier. And it's just, I can't remember the lady's name nor her channel name, but once I do find it, I will leave a link to that video in the description of this one, so you guys can check that out for yourself. But what she was mentioning is that the people who were going, so far as going out to get themselves the jab or whatever, right? And it's like they got this unusual obsession with people who don't want nothing to do with it, who don't want to get, who don't want to get the jab, who don't want to have anything to do with it. And it's like, okay, if you're so obsessed with getting that damn thing, struck into your arm or wherever they're going to put it, then, well, can you just leave everyone else the F alone who don't want nothing to do with that? Is that so hard? I mean, like, how is it that, and if this is basically just allegedly, if this whole thing it's just like she said, if this whole thing is as dangerous as they say it is, then why be concerned about other people? But then they turn around and actually want, you see all of these different methods that they put in forth of control, and it all starts to make sense. They put all of these things in line to have control. They don't want people speaking out, neither you nor me speaking out about the things that are going on, because it informs people to basically have a change of thought on the methods they are proposing to the people. And I would want to just keep it as the word proposed, but it's almost as if like it's getting way past that. I mean, what have we seen since the past few months? We've seen politicians basically passing not laws, but rules, basically fining people money if they break these rules. Yet people have caught them breaking their own rules, only for them to basically come up with a bogus excuse and not be fined or charged for it, like they've been doing their own citizens. And then YouTube's making things worse by trying to, and you see, it's not even just YouTube, it's the VPN services too. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but it turns out the VPN services actually are coming with trackers now. And if you thought that you were safe with the VPN, you are mistaken. It turns out the law enforcement can actually, I think it was either law enforcement or maybe like FBI officials or whatever, that can use, basically come up with gag orders in order to force these VPN providers to give up the information of someone in particular. So you're not even safe with the VPN, or at least not from a service. It's probably, I don't know, best to have one of your own. But the fact of the matter that they could do that is like, something. If you're using Google's platform, man, there's no privacy there. Even if you're not using it, you're still using a phone, there is still no privacy. Unless you completely just take off all of these different things that are being utilized into stealing your data and violating your privacy rights. Now, there's another app. There's another app that's out there known as TikTok. I don't even have to get into Facebook because you guys already know how notorious they are when it comes to stealing people's data. Now then, TikTok has been linked with China officials and developers, and it turns out they were actually utilizing that app in order to do the same thing, to get a lot of information, possibly even facial recognition data, the works. And as a result, there's been millions of people who have used it, but there was also people smart enough not to even mess with it. Now, as for the Zoom app, I don't really know too much about that, but you got to understand that came out as well as around the same time this whole situation started. And they set it up to where, like, neighbor could talk to neighbor from a distance, and people could talk to other their family members who are basically across country or across into what yet another another state or anything like that, right? Or just friends from just from around the world that can basically chat with one another, do a like the similar thing with Skype. And who knows even what happened to Skype, because you don't even hear anything about Skype anymore. I probably either started losing business due to the other platforms, but who knows. Anyway, the bottom line is that, like, there's a particular thing about The Simpsons that I've yet to upload. If you want to see it for yourself, it's in the playlist area. I think I may have it in there somewhere. I need to figure out where I put it. But the thing about this is that they had an episode of The Simpsons that where they had actually several of them. And a lot of people were, who know about this, and we've seen plenty of it, have realized that they have been actually portraying programmed events that actually happened in the episodes of The Simpsons, such as such as the 9/11 incident with the Twin Towers that happened, and so on and so forth. Even the speculation of how the elections are rigged even before they begin. That as well. This whole situation with the stimulus checks, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what this immediately is. It's just another farce to just pretty much just blind and distract the masses. They want to make people desperate for funds, and they implement these. And yet people, the government is doing this to you, and yet you still look at them for a freaking handout and for a helping hand. The same people who basically are able to basically sleep good at night, not having to worry about bills or anything like that, not even having to worry about feeding their children because they got plenty of money that they don't need, by the way. Because they got so much of this stuff that they barely even know what to do with it, and they find excuses to get more and more and more, while other people in their families are either homeless or basically are desperate to just scrounging for table scraps just to survive. There have been countless amounts of suicides in this year alone, just because of the recklessness that has gone on, just because of the amount of greed people have, just because of the amount of selfishness that exists out there, that they have caused this pain on so many. I'm here to tell you that the solution is possible, but it's only going to come from the people. Until people basically are willing to rise up and to basically, be able to just be done with allowing their livelihoods to be run by the same government that has basically, and it's just the same old saying, as I always say, the same problem that basically comes out of nowhere is coming from the exact source that's trying to give you the solution. The government comes up with the problem to basically impose a solution that it's in favor to them, not to you. It may sound like it's good for you, but that's just that's just the rules. It's intended to seem like that, but the real, it's basically really intended to help them out, such as when they pass bills. Did you know that they add other things onto these bills that they pass that basically favors to, their interests? So pretty much they manipulate the interests of the people in order to basically fulfill their own interests. They wanted to give every every man and woman out there, most likely single, $600 in stimulus, while they gave like around I think it was 10 million or 10 trillion or $10 billion overseas. Dude, are you serious? Are you serious? What the heck is $600 supposed to do? But get this. It shouldn't even have been like that. It should have been way more than what they've been giving out before. But guess what? This money was already your money from the beginning. There was no debate needed for any of this. They used this as a method to buy time. They used this as a weaponized tool to basically get you desperate. They wanted to program you into being desperate, into pretty much being more submissive to the government in order to basically try to get more aid in a way for you to survive. What happens to people who basically try to utilize methods of self-sustainability, such as gathering water or gathering their own electricity, not connected to the not the system, but the the cities not connected to the government and not utilizing any of the stuff that they implore, such as the water that they poison on you when they put the fluoridation in there, such as many of other things, by the way. Also, not even utilizing their smart meters, because they use that to basically track and trace exactly which room you're using power in, if you didn't know. And not just not siphoning or depending on the industry at all. Just being your own man or being your own woman, being able to sustain and live on your own 2 feet, meaning that you provide for both your family with with your hands and the effort that you do every day. You work and bust your ass just to basically provide and put food on the table for your family that you love so dearly. But you cannot put that trust in the government for aid in order to basically to provide for your family. They don't care if your children go, starve for a whole week or for 2 days or even for a day or even for months or years. They don't care. They only care about lining their own pockets while manipulating the masses in their own favor. The only way we will ever stop this is if this infighting comes to a stop. People start waking up to the reality that they're being used and manipulated, and they break themselves from this brainwashing that has gone on for so long. It's not our fault that we've been brainwashed, but it is our responsibility to undo the brainwashing. Stay safe, everybody. Stay strong. This is just a little tribute I'm doing for Jeff Censored. Let's go to the actual channel and to the videos. I don't think this is the original one though, because they have censored a lot of his other previous channels, and he wasn't kidding. This really was the most censored. He really did have the most censored channel out there. There's been others as well, and even it's gotten to the point like every time they would like make a new one, they just immediately take it down. They wouldn't even give him a chance to even speak out or anything. I'm gonna leave a link in the description to all of this for you guys to basically be able to find both his channels for yourself. There's this one, and there's also Supreme Lord Commander, if I'm not mistaken. So go into the community. It says, "Hey everyone, the big show with his good friend Camille today on Jeff C Live. Very important information of the incoming mRNA vaccines, the synthetic biology revolution." Let's see what else that says. Revolution and the automation of the Great Reset. Hope y'all are having a great week. Much love, Jeff C. And that was 1 month ago. I'll leave him a like. And then there's a lot of people in the comments who posted their input on that. Go to the channels, and there's his other one there. Let's check that one out. It's the worst bands of all time. Going down even farther, seeing all of the work that this guy did. This is going back a whole year. A whole year. Going into 2 years, 3. Let's see how far down it goes. 4, 5. Going down as far as 5 years. People, these are just one of the many individuals out there who have fought for truth to basically bring forth to a lot of people out there who were just completely blinded by and brainwashed by the system. It's not our fault that this happened, but it is our responsibility to undo the damage that these corrupt people within the crevices of our world have done to us. It is up to all of us to put a stop to this. Let us all, take a lesson from all of these efforts that these guys have done, and not let their efforts be in vain. All right, everybody, this is the other channel I wanted to show you. Zacchaeus Breed Love Earwig. His other channel's description will be in here as well. This guy, He dedicated his life to basically spreading out the truth and also helping those out who are also suffering, as well as he was, from the satanic organization that has done deplorable things to the people, as well as for many generations. He made tones that helped a lot of people out, as well as giving helpful advice, warning people of a lot of things that were happening. And as a result, people who have been speaking out against the corruption, as a result, they've been tortured. They've either been tortured to the point that where they have either lost their lives and their livelihoods, which is most likely the obvious end goal of this synthetic transparent system that manipulates structures from a distance by basically manipulating and using people, the masses, to its advantage. People who have been blinded by greed, blinded by all of this stuff that just causes them to do things they wouldn't normally do. And when you really get to the bottom of everything, you start to realize that a lot of this stuff is coming from the fact that they're manipulating the masses, the people around us. And we're so when it comes to situations like this, we come to the understanding that we ourselves are surrounded by people who are still programmed into this synthetic system of manipulation and disinformation. They play hero when in reality they themselves are the villain, manipulating the people into confusing who the true enemy actually is. This has happened to many of us. Many of us. We're only people who just wanted to live our lives in peace. We didn't want no trouble, and we didn't want to give any, trouble to anyone. This will be yet another video dedicated to the whistleblowers who have fought to spread truth and to help those out there who have been victimized by the tyranny that has manipulated the masses for years. I claim no copyright to the content being shown. The content provider will be credited with a link in the description.
When that whistleblower, by their very act of coming forward, has shown more dedication to country, more of an understanding of the president's oath of office than the president himself.
I can't regret having done what I knew at the time to be what I ought to do, my duty as a citizen. I have no way that I can regret that.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. It constituted a critical lapse in judgment and a personal failure on my part for which I am solely and completely responsible.
There are things that we as people can always do. They we can always be, like, whenever society and the institutions are failing, we can always take our own individual actions against the institutions of power, and we can always take actions against it.
I'm comfortable with the decisions I made. But I don't think it's up for me to decide the direction of the future of our society. I believe that that's a participatory, multilateral decision, and we should intentionally try to remove the outsized influence of a particular individual, and that includes myself. And that's why I do not myself ask for pardon, and I never will.
Okay, hopefully this list is reliable. Hopefully it is. This is a list of whistleblowers, ranging over the years. It's probably not a complete list of all whistleblowers that have existed, but it's close enough, as I mentioned, to at least let people know that there are people who did dedicated their lives to somewhat of truth and somewhat of righteousness in these times. Okay, so this is a list of major whistleblowers from various countries. The individuals below brought attention to abuses of government or large corporations. Many of these whistleblowers were fired from their jobs or prosecuted in the process of shining light on their issues of concern. This list is not exhaustive. Before 1960, so there's 1564, which is the year. Audrey Kurbsky, a gender male, organization Boyers in action. Miskovit, nobleman, a Rurik, closely related to Ivan the Terrible, defected to Grand Duchy of Lithuania and soon began exposing the Ivan's regime. Let's see, so what's the next one? Along with the third, Lieutenant Richard Marvin Mitchell. So who is this next one? So in 1777, there's Samuel Shaw, gender as a male, in United States Constitutional Navy. Along with 3rd Lieutenant Richard Marvin Midshipman, Shaw was a key figure in the passage of the first whistleblower law passed in the United States by the Continental Congress during the Revolutionary War. The two naval officers blew the whistle on the torturing of British POWs by Commodore East Hopkins. The commander-in-chief of the Continental Navy, the Continental Congress, enacted the Whistleblower Protection Law on July 30 of 1778 by a unanimous vote, in addition to declare that the United States would defend the two against a libel suit filed against them by Hopkins. 1993, Edmund Diana Morel, gender as a male, and Congo Free State. Well, obviously he's a male. English shipping clerk turned journalist who reported on the atrocities in the Congo Free State in Africa and became an anti-slavery campaigner. His revelations led to a strong campaign against Belgian King Leopold II's autocratic regime in his African territory, where the rubber plantations brutally exploited slave labor. Now, there's two things that people are not familiar with. That there are people of different nationalities with similar skin tones, and that it is a topic for another video. For this is only a video for the whistleblowers, but you got to understand, when it came to the history with the slave situation, they did mess with that, and they did screw with that to where it used it as a matter of controlling the masses. So it's really best to do to really actually dig deep for a lot of information if that is your concern about certain things, because you may have been lied to. Okay, so 1930, Boris Bezinhanov, I don't even think I pronounced that right, but whatever. Gender as a male, CPSU secretarian, Stalin's personal secretary who fled abroad in 1928 and while living in the Western countries exposed many secrets concerning Stalin's rise to power and the Stalin regime. First book of his memories was published in Paris in 1930. 1931, Herbert Yardley, gender as a male, United States Cipher Bureau, cryptologist and head of the Cipher Bureau, the first U.S. signet agency better known as the Black Chamber, who exposed the inner workings of the organization and its surveillance policies in his eponymous 1931 book, The American Black Chamber, after the United States Department of State withdrew funding from the organization's activities in 1929. Citing ethical concerns, however, while the Black Chamber ceased operations following the withdrawal of funding, the publication of Yardley's book 2 years later and its resultant controversy in government circles caused the amendment of the Espionage Act of 1917 to prohibit disclosure of foreign code or any communication transmitted through code through Yardley remains a controversial figure in the intelligence community. He was honored by the National Security Agency in 1999. 1933. Smedley Butler, male, United States Marine Corps. Retired U.S. Marine Corps Major General, a two-time recipient of the Medal of Honor, who alleged to the McCormack-Dixon Committee in the U.S. House of Representatives that business leaders had plotted a fascist coup d'etat against the Franklin D. Roosevelt administration in what became known as the business plot in his book. War is a Racket. Butler listed well-known U.S. military operations that he alleged were not about protecting democracy, as was told the public. It was told to the public, but in the furthering the business interests of U.S. banks and corporations. And that's when you get into a lot of the corruption, where it's obviously not about the people to them. It's just about themselves and their own selfish interests. We've seen that situation play out many times in these years, or since these past years. 1933 to 1934, Herbert von Boss. Gender, male. Press chief of Adolf Hitler's conservative vice chancellor, Franz von Papen. He used his position inside the government apparatus to pass on information about secret atrocities in malfeasance. I have never seen that word before, but I cannot pronounce it. Committed by the Nazi government and part organizations, especially the SANSS, to the foreign press, especially to Claude Cockburn, editor of the London Bass-Macher journal, The Week, in order to alarm the world public about those those goings on. On June 30th, 1934, he was murdered by a squad of SS men dispatched to his office by Heinrich Himmler, who shot him in the back of the head. Jessica Mitford dubbed him Deep Throat of the Third Reich. 1942, Jan Kurski. Gender, male, Polish Home Army. Polish resistance fighter who during World War II twice visited the Warsaw Ghetto and met the United States President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, with the UK Foreign Secretary, and with the Polish shadow government in London, to report what he had witnessed concerning conditions for Jewish people and the extermination camps. His reports was not taken seriously by any authority. And looks like there's like at least a tenth of this in here somewhere. I don't want to. Oh well. I guess I'll leave a link to this so you guys can read the rest. But there's at least quite a few here. We're now getting into the 1960s and the 1970s. Unfortunately, it is unfortunate that they're not. I would have to click on it, but I prefer to stay on this page in order to read the rest of them too. So anyway, 1963, there's the image there, and then the name is John Paul Von, gender male, organization United States Army. American colonel who during the Vietnam War reported to his superiors that American policy and tactics were seriously flawed and later went to the media with his concerns. Von was asked to resign his commissions, did so. Oh, wow, I'm messing up my own grammar here. Von was asked to resign his commissions, did so, but later returned to Vietnam. Now we're getting into 1965. 1966, Peter Buxton, gender male, Swiss police, United States Public Health Service, exposing the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. Oh, wow. 1967, John White, male, United States Navy, U.S. Navy Lieutenant JG. That's probably abbreviation for something, but I'm not, I'm not really certain what it is. But anyway, let's continue. White wrote this letter to the editor of the New Haven, Con Register, he asserted that U.S. President Lyndon Johnson lied to Congress about faulty sonar reports used to justify the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. White continued his whistleblowing activities by appearing in the 1968 documentary In the Year of the Pig. The 2014, he published this post-mortem entitled The Gulf of Tonkin Events 50 Years Later, a footnote of the history of the Vietnam War. 1971, Daniel Ellsberg, Mail, United States State Department. Ellsberg was a former Rand Corporation military analyst who, along with Anthony Russo, leaked the Pentagon Papers, a secret account of the Vietnam War, to the New York Times. The Pentagon Papers revealed endemic practices of deception by previous administrations and contributed to the erosion of public support for the war. The release triggered a legal case concerning government efforts to prevent the publications of classified information that was heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. New York Times, CO.V, United States 403, U.S. 713. Ellsberg himself was the subject of retaliation by the Nixon administration. 1971, Frank Serpico, Mail, New York Police Department. Former New York City police officer who reported several of his fellow officers for bribery and related charges in front of the Knapp Commission probing police corruption in the NYPD. Serpico was the first police officer in the history of the NYPD to step forward to report and secretly testify openly about widespread systematic corruption payoffs amounting to millions of dollars. The 1973 firm Serpico is an account of his story. 1971, Perry Fullerock, Gender, Male, National Security Agency, former NSA analyst who revealed the existence of the NSA and its worldwide covert surveillance network in Ramparts magazine in 1971. At the time, the NSA was an ultra-secretive, scarcely known organization. Because of the Fellwalk revelations, the U.S. Senate Church Committee introduced successful legislations to stop NSA spying on American citizens. Fellwalk was motivated by Daniel Ellsberg to releasing of the Pentagon Papers. 1971, my bad. Vladimir Berkovsky, Gender, Male, Soviet abuse of psychiatry, I think that's how you pronounce that. In the Soviet Union during the leadership of General Secretary of Leonid Brezhnev. I'm not fluent in other languages, so it's really hard to pronounce those other words. So anyway, let's just continue on from that. Psychiatry. Wow. As a TI and you're getting hit with frequencies, it really makes it difficult to really read this stuff, Psychiatry was used as a tool to eliminate political dissidents in 1971. Vladimir Berkovsky smuggled to the West a file of 150 pages documenting the political abuse of the psychiatry, Charity, I think that's what that's pronounced. I'm not certain. Which he sent to the Times. The documents were photocopies of forensic reports on prominent Soviet dissidents. In January 1972, Berkovsky was convicted of spreading anti-Soviet propaganda under criminal code, mainly on the ground that he had, with anti-Soviet intention, circulated false reports about political dissidents confined in mental hospitals. Now, that also relates to a lot of TIs, too, because first off, this program tries to trick people into making them believe you're mentally ill when you're not. And that's what I've been warning a lot of people when and I get it, it's not easy when you're out and about and you're filming. They're hitting you with these frequencies at the same time that you're recording. But the thing is, what I do is I don't go looking for them when I'm recording. I just let them find me. In the end, they're going to, they're always going to look for you, and they're always going to show themselves in front of your camera. Let it be like that. Don't pan your camera to them, because in the end, they always are dedicated to being in your line of sight. When you let them do that, that's when they expose themselves. But anyway, that's for another time to discuss. Dissidents confined in mental hospitals, political abuse of psychiatry in the Soviet Union was denounced in the course of the Congress of the World Psychiatric Association in Mexico City, 1971, Hawaii, 1977, Vienna, 1983, and Athens, 1989. Wow, that guy had a lot of stuff to deal with the system and exposing it. Okay, 1972, W. Mark Felt, gender male, Federal Bureau of Investigation, known only as Deep Throat until 2005. Felt was associated director of the FBI, number of 2 jobs in the bureau when he leaked information about President Richard Nixon's involvement in the Watergate scandal. We've already basically seen him in the video before. The scandal would eventually lead to the resignation of President in the prison terms of White House Chief of Staff H.R. Haldeman and President Advisor John N. Richmond. I think I pronounced that right. Hopefully I did. 1973, Stanley Adams, male, Hoffman LaRoche, a senior executive at Swiss pharmaceutical company Hoffman LaRoche Adams supplied evidence to European Economic Community regulators on the company's price fixing in the international Vietnam market. And we've had a lot of problems with that in this year, with a lot of price gouging, with a lot of people doing that with the toilet paper, doing that with the PS5s, doing that with all of these systems. But do not trust today's technology because it's basically very deceptive now, considering what they're doing. And trust me, it isn't just the toilet paper they did the price gouging with. It was supplies in general. And it really does go down as the scam of the century. It does. Anyway, the EEC, at least I hope this is where I left off at, these revealed his name during the resulting investigation, and Adams was arrested for industrial espionage by the Swiss government and spent 6 months in jail. He fought for 10 years to clear his name and received compensation from the EEC. 1973, A. Ernest Fitzgerald, male, United States Department of Defense, U.S. Air Force auditor who exposed to Congress a $2 billion cost overrun associated with Lockheed's C-5A cargo plane. Fitzgerald retired from the Defense Department in 2006. 1973, Henry Pizarret, male, French National Centre for Scientific Research. Henry Pizarret working on the Jesuiro campus, and I probably did not pronounce that right. Let's continue. Detected asbestos fibers falling from the ceiling and creating a committee to created a committee to study and inform people about the dangers of asbestos. That's probably what led to its removal from different building structures. But when you create something, people actually are supposed to test it out. So wouldn't they have already known about that as they promoted it? And then there you go. 1974, Karen Silkwood, female. Karen McGee. There have been a number of nuclear power whistleblowers who have identified safety concerns at the nuclear power plants. By the way, if you want to know what the real cause of global warming, there it is. A lot of nuclear testing and a lot of military testing with different types of weapons. As a result of the chemicals that get released in the atmosphere, that's what's causing a lot of changes in weather. Now, I could get into the directed energy weapon systems that also are involved with this in a different subject, but that's for a later time. Okay, so there have been a number of nuclear power whistleblowers who have identified safety concerns at nuclear power plants. The first prominent nuclear power whistleblower was Karen Silkwood, who worked as a chemical technician at a Kerr-McGee nuclear plant. Silkwood became an activist in the Oil, Chemical and Atomic Workers International Union in order to protest health and safety issues in 1974. She testified to the United States Atomic Energy Commission about her concerns. The 1983 film Silkwood is an account of this story. 1976, Gregory C. Minor, Richard B. Herbert, and Dale G. Brandock. I don't even think I pronounced his last name right. Gender of all 3 subjects, male, General Electric. Oh, General Electric. Miss SHP would definitely be interested in seeing this. Nuclear power whistleblowers on February 2nd, 1976, Gregory C. Minor, Richard B. Herbert, and Dale G. Brandock, known as the GE3, blew the whistle on safety problems at nuclear power plants, and their actions has been called an exemplary instance of whistleblowing. The 3 engineers gained the attention of the journalists, and their disclosures about the threats of nuclear power had a significant impact They timed their statements to coincide with their resignations from responsible positions in General Electric's nuclear energy division, and later established themselves as consultants on the nuclear power industry for state government, federal agencies, and overseas governments. The consulting firm they formed, MHB Technical Associates, was technical advisor for the movie The China Syndrome. The 3 engineers participated in congressional hearings, which their disclosures participated. Was it General Electric or was it something else? I swear I could have sworn it's General Electric, but I could be wrong about that, because there was a website dealing with the findings of a lot of the perpetrators who were responsible for the targeting and electronic harassment. Anyway, let's continue. 1977, Frank Snepp, Male Central Intelligence Agency. CIA analyst at the U.S. Embassy, Saigon, who published Decent Interval in 1977 about Operation Frequent Wind and the failures of the CIA and other American entities to properly prepare for the fall of Saigon. Although he redacted all names, methods, and sources from the book after it was published, CIA Director Stansfield Turner had Snepp successfully prosecuted for breach of contract for violating his non-disclosure agreement. Snepp lost all income, including royalties from publications of the book, a verdict upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. Ooh, excuse me. Now we're heading into the 1980s, and then after that, 1990s, and then 2000s and 2010s. And how far have we gotten in this? Looks like we're hitting 20 minutes. So I think I'm going to stop it in the 1980s, and then after that, I'll go do a separate video, and then we'll go from, like the 1990s to the 2000s, and then finally the 2010s, and then that'll be the end of it. So this will be part 1, and then all the way up into 2010 will be part 2. Okay, 1981, Ralph McGee, Male Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. Ralph Walter McGee, born 1928, served for 25 years in American intelligence, being a former case officer of the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, from 1953 to 1972. His assignments were in East Asia and Southeast Asia, where he held administrative posts. After leaving the Central Intelligence Agency, McGee brought to the public his highly critical views based on his experience. He has discussed and illustrated how the CIA's covert actions and interventions policies can produce unfavorable outcomes. A 1981 allegation by McGee about CIA involvement in the Indonesian killings of 1965 and 1966 was censored by the CIA, prompting the American Civil Liberties Union to sue on his behalf. The CIA prevailed. Viktor Suvorov, male, GRU, former Soviet military intelligence officer who, after his defection to the West in 1978, exposed in his books various secrets related to the Soviet military and foreign intelligence. The first book of his memoirs was published in 1981. 1984, Civil Ponting, gender, male, United Kingdom Ministries of Defense. Senior civil servant in the UK Ministry of Defense who leaked classified documents to Labour Member of Parliament Tim Dalyell, confirming that the General Bill Grano was sunk by British forces during the Falklands War while outside the total exclusion zone, contradicting statements by the Thatcher government. 1984, John Michael Gravitt, gender, male, General Electric. There's General Electric once more. Became the first individual in 40 years to file a QTAM lawsuit under the False Claims Act after the statute had been weakened in 1943. Gravitt had a machinist foreman sued GE for defrauding the United States Department of Defense when GE began falsely billing for work on the B-1 Lancer bomber. Gravitt was laid off following his complaints to supervisors about the discrepancies. The case of Gravitt, the fifth General Electric, and Gravitt's disposition to Congress led to federal legislation bolstering the False Claims Claims Act in 1986. The Amendment Act made it easier for whistleblowers to collect damages. Gravit's suit proceeded under the 1986 amendments, and GE settled the case for a then record $3.5 million. 1984, Duncan Edmonds, male, Canadian government. Canadian civil servants who reported to his chief and the top Canadian civil servant that Minister of Defense Robert Coates had visited a West German strip club while on an official mission with NATO documents in his possession, creating a security risk. Coates was asked to resign from the cabinet by Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, who also fired Edmonds and made him persona non grata in government circles. 1984, there's a question mark there, so that one's probably undecided, but that's probably the closest they got for the actual date of this individual. Ingolf Bratt, gender male, and Brofos, engineer who revealed himself as the anonymous source in the Brofos scandal about illegal weapon exports, an act that led to a new Swedish law concerning company secrets, which commonly is referred to as Lex Bratt. 1985, Kathy Misenter, gender female, MI5, former MI5 officer who accused the British Security Service for having overzealous interpreted which groups qualified as subversive, thus justifying surveillance against them. My sister revealed that M15 had spied on trade union, civil liberty organizations, and the campaign for nuclear disarmament. 1985, Ronald J. Goldstein, and I believe I have heard this person's name before. Ebasco Constructors Incorporated. Let's see, nuclear power whistleblower. There's a lot of nuclear power with corruption, dude. Seriously, I've lost count of how many I've read so far. But anyway, let's continue. Nuclear power whistleblower Goldstein was a supervisor employed by EBASCO, which was a major contractor for the construction of Houston Lightning and Power Company, South Texas Project, a complex of 2 nuclear power plants. In the summer of 1985, Goldstein identified safety problems to the safety team, an international compliance program established by EBASCO in Houston Lightning, including non-compliance with safety procedures, the failure to issue safety compliance reports, and quality control violations affecting the safety of the plant. Safe Team was promoted as an independent safe haven for employees to voice their safety concerns. The 2 companies did not inform their employees that they did not believe complaints reported to Safe Team had any legal protection after he filed his report to Safe Team. Goldstein was fired. Subsequently, Goldstein filed suit under federal nuclear whistleblower statutes. The U.S. Department of Labor ruled that his submission to Safe Team were protected and his dismissal was invalid, a finding upheld by Labor Secretary Lynn Martin. The ruling was appealed and overturned by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which ruled that private programs offered no protection for whistleblowers after Goldstein lost his case. Congress amended the federal nuclear whistleblower law to provide protection reports made to internal systems and prevent retaliation against whistleblowers. Wow, that's a lot. 1986, Roger Wenzel, male, B.F. Shaw Company. Roger D. Wenzel, America's first nationally recognized whistleblower at nuclear weapons facility. In 1985, Wenzel was wrongfully dismissed by the DuPont B.F. Shaw Company after exposing the illegal sale and use of drugs taking place at the Savannah River nuclear weapons facility, which provided weapons-grade plutonium for the U.S. government. Wenzel was reinstated by the Department of Energy in 1987, but he again faced workplace retaliation and forced out of his job shortly after. Sounds like he was being gaslighted, if you put it that way. Wenzel case led to the passing of the Nuclear Weapons Whistleblowers Protection in 1992. Wow, that's close to when I was born. Unbelievable. 1986, Mordecai Vanunu, male, Israel nuclear weapons program, revealed Israel's clandestine nuclear program to the British press. He spent 17 and a half years in prison. As a result, the first 11 of these in solitary confinement after his release. Sanctions were placed on him, among others. He was not allowed to leave Israel or speak to foreigners. The sanctions have been renewed every 12 months. At present, he is appealing a further 6-month prison sentence imposed by an Israel court for having spoken to foreigners and foreign press. 1987, Joy Adams, female B.F. Shaw Company. Joy P. Adams was terminated in retaliation after testifying in support of Roger Wenzel, a whistleblower who disclosed safety violations at the federal Savannah River nuclear weapons facility in South Carolina. 1987, Howard Samuel Nunn, male, Duke Power Company. Howard Samuel Nunn blew the whistle on the Duke Power Company and won his case in 1987. Nunn alleged that he was fired from Duke Power Company's Catawba nuclear power station for rising concerns about safety and quality control, according to the court's decision. 1987, Douglas Palmy, gender, male, federal prisoner. Doug Palmy was a federal prisoner at the maximum security prison in Lopcon, California in 1987. Palmy lost his job with the federal prison training program after writing a letter of complaint about the use of alleged hazardous chemicals at Lompoc. He then filed another complaint concerning his dismissal to the Department of Labor. Plumlee's case led to a ruling by an administrative law judge that prison inmates can be considered federal employees, thus protected against employer retribution under the whistleblower protection law. 1988, Joseph McTowell, male, Hilberton. McTowell was an electrician for Halberton Brown and Root, HB&R, who witnessed hazardous conditions during the construction of the Comanche Peak nuclear power plant. After he reported the safety issues to HB&R, the company's lawyers coerced him into signing a non-disclosure agreement that prohibited him from going to the nuclear regulatory commissions with his concern. McClure willfully violated his non-disclosure agreement, sparking a 7-year legal battle that resulted in the Department of Labor ultimately voiding his entire settlement agreement and allowing him to pursue his whistleblower case. McTowell's case set a legal precedent for whistleblowers who reported safety violations within the nuclear industry by disallowing non-disclosure agreements. Now, you see how this is going? Because a lot of the stuff what targeted business is doing with nuclear power plants, whether you know it or not, and it's dealing with a lot of military contractors, a lot of DHS fusion centers, and a lot of these other places. There are people speaking out when it comes to this corruption, no matter what faction it is, no matter what situation it is, when it is happening. But the problem is that people are going to the point to where we got these trolls out there trying to say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, oh, it's just all in your head, all this other mess. And it's like, something. You are, these people who do this type of stuff to basically discredit people who are bringing out the truth. You are really supporting a twisted agenda here, whether you know it or not. You could just be looking at it as in favor of yourself when it comes to stuff like this, but there are people actively suffering every day. There are people who have lost their lives, and as a result of this tyranny that you just so happen to support. So even if you're getting paid, even if you're in a comfortable spot, just remember what's as a result of that money that you accepted and of what you're supporting, because understand that there are people out there suffering, and damn well you would not want yourself to be in a position like that. So why should you basically impose and support something that's basically promoting such a thing onto others? Think about that. Did I read that already? MI5, the Soviet spy after his publication, which the government tried to block. I don't think I've read this. Just in case I didn't, let's read it anyway. 1988, Peter Wright, male, M15. Harold Wilson from the Office of the Director General of M15 was this is the second person I read from M15, but let's continue. Was a Soviet spy after its publication in Australia, which the Thatcher government tried to block. The government attempted to ban the book in Britain under the Official Secrets Act. Through litigation, it succeeded in imposing a gag. There it is, a gag order, the same thing that they had been using on the VPN providers, the same thing that just gets promoted. I don't think they use gag orders on the actual internet service providers. I doubt it, considering the fact that they work right in hand with the government. But let's continue reading. On English newspapers to prevent them from publishing rights allegations, the gag orders were upheld by the law lords. Eventually, in 1988, the book was cleared for legitimate sale when the law lords acknowledged that the overseas publications meant it contained no secrets. However, Rott was barred from receiving royalties from the sale of the book in the United Kingdom in November 1991. The European Court of Human Rights ruled that the British government had breached the European Convention of Human Rights in gagging its own newspapers. The British government's legal costs were estimated to be around £250 in 1987. That's right. I know the difference between both currencies, baby. I'm not stupid. Anyway, 1988, Harry Templeton, male, the Mirror Group. Harry Templeton worked as a printer on newspaper owned by Robert Maxwell's Mirror Group in 1985. Templeton was appointed as a trustee of the Mirror Group pension scheme, but was fired in 1988 after challenging Maxwell's misuses of pension funds. Only after Maxwell's death a couple of years later was it revealed that Maxwell had stolen £4 million of staff, or that's either for pounds or euros. I could have that wrong. I could possibly have that wrong. That's either pounds or euros. I'm just not familiar with that symbol. But if they're talking about Britain, it most likely is euros, though. It's probably euros. Pension of staff pension money. Okay, 1988. Roland. We're getting close to the year 2000 now. Robert Gerlin, male, Genesco Technology. Gibralin filed a QTOM lawsuit against defense subcontractor Guinness Technology Corp. After working undercover for 18 months with the FBI and DCIS to uncover the company's fraudulent test methods that were used to pass key components for their high-speed anti-radiation missile, HARM missile. The FBI and DCIS case resulted in a plea bargain, $725,000 fine, and 3 Genesco executives sent to federal prison. Gibbert, who was fired from Genesco, followed revelation of whistleblowing, received $131,250 of the fine in 1989. Gibbert and fellow employees Inge Morel also filed QTOM actions against Genocide Parents Company, Texas Instruments, and wow, all this reading is just exhausting. But I'm going to continue anyway. In 1988, Michelle Haddle, gender male, Healthmaster Incorporated, worked for Healthmaster Incorporated and blew the whistle on the whistleblower retaliation when he was fired from his job because he was involved and testified in a Medicare fraud case against Healthmaster. He filed a complaint in 1998 and 11th Circuit Court ruled that he had not been retaliated against, but the Court of Appeals reversed that finding also in 1998. The U.S. Department of Justice submitted an amicus brief in support of Haddle before the decision was reversed. Reversed. I pronounced that right. Okay. So how many of these do we have left? Because we're getting close to the year 2000. Anyway, 1989, Douglas D. Keith, male, United Technologies Corporation, filed a QTOM lawsuit against United Technologies Corporation, UTX, where he held the title Vice President of Finance. Mr. Keith and others had investigation billing practices at UTX's Sikorsky's aircraft division, uncovering inflated progress billings going back at least as far as 1982. UTX offered Mr. Keith a $1 million severance payment if he would keep quiet, but Keith rejected the offer. In 1994, UTX paid $150 million to the government, and Keith was awarded a bounty of $22.5 million. 1989, William Schumer, male, Hughes Aircraft, filed a lawsuit January 1989, allegedly fraud by Hughes Aircraft with respect to the B-2 bomber in 1997. The Supreme Court held that the claims should have been dismissed as based on invalid retroactive legislation because the alleged fraud occurred in 1982, 1984 before the 1986 amendments to the Fraudulent Claims Act, which might have permitted it. The government did not support Schumer in his lawsuit as it had determined that the alleged fraud had actually been filed benefited the government by shifting costs from the cost plus B2 contract to the fixed price of F-15 contract. And finally, 1989 to 1991, Myron Milham, gender male, Mobile. A toxicologist, he warned managers at Mobile that the company's gasoline that was being sold in Japan contained benzene in excess of 5% and that levels needed to be reduced. Upon his return to the United States, he was fired. He later successfully sued the company. And there you have it. Next will be 1990s to 2000s into 2010. As always, everybody, stay safe out there. Stay strong.